Good morning. I am very excited at the opportunity to get to preach to you this whole month of November. And if you did not know that, then I hope that you will not be disappointed, because I'm really excited about the messages that I'm going to bring to you. And I've got a lot of enthusiasm, and I've got a lot of stuff that I want to tell you. And I know that I won't get to everything. And I know that I'll stumble over my words, and I might even mispronounce some things because I'm prone to do that, especially if I say big words like omnipotent. And so I'm just going to stay away from stuff like that, and I just want you to follow along with me. In fact, sometimes I give these messages to my brothers and my sister, and I let them listen to it. And that's the way I get to share with them the message of the word of Jesus Christ. And my sister will come back to me, and she'll just tell me stuff that's pretty funny that I've said, and I didn't realize that I did it. So I'm going to apologize for that, but I'm not going to apologize for the message that I plan on bringing to you. I'm not going to apologize about the things that I want to share with you. And I hope this morning that when you come here to this church, if you don't know anything about Jesus, if you're just uncomfortable about what we're talking about or what we're doing here, I hope that you can leave this place understanding a little bit more about who we're supposed to be surrendered to and who we're supposed to be following, or what's a better path for my life. And so I really hope that you can get a better understanding what's a better path, what's a better direction, what's better for me. And so we're talking about surrender for the month of November. We raise our white flag. We're talking about surrender. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about fish tacos. Just hold on with me. I just got to tell you a little bit about fish tacos. All right, fish tacos, they look so delicious. And every time I see somebody eating fish tacos, I think, those look so delicious. I really want to get me a fish taco. And so I look at the dinner menu at a restaurant, and I'm like, man, that looks delicious. I want a fish taco. Do you recommend the fish taco? The waiter says, yes, those are the best fish tacos you will ever have. In fact, that might be the best meal you'll ever have. And I've heard this before. And I say, okay, let me get the fish tacos. And when they get them to me, they don't look anything like the picture. And then when I start to eat them, they don't taste like how I want them to taste. And then I'm like, well, maybe that just wasn't it. And so we go to another restaurant, and I'm looking through, and I'm like, hey, fish tacos. And my wife's like, you didn't like them the last time. I'm like, yeah, but they're fish tacos. And so I get the fish tacos. And I'm like, I don't know about them. And then I'm like, Anna, let's make some fish tacos. So we make some fish tacos at the house. And I'm like, okay, these are homemade fish tacos. These are going to be delicious. I'm going to love these fish tacos. And when I eat the fish tacos, I'm like, I don't know. I'm just not sure. It should make sense because I love fish and I love tacos. They should be friends. They should go along together. And you might be thinking, I love fish tacos. I like fish tacos. And you might be thinking, you know what, Jovan? You haven't had my fish tacos. You haven't had my grandma's fish tacos. You haven't had that guy that has the taco truck downtown. Those fish tacos are good. Or that guy that's got the taco shack at the county line. You go to that taco shack, you get some really fish tacos. Or have you had this certain country's fish tacos, Jovan? Maybe you should have those. And you know what? I'll probably be the sucker. And I'll go buy those fish tacos, and I'll start to eat those fish tacos, and I'll think, they're not that good. I look at those fish tacos, and I want them, and every time it seems like they promise me something really good, like they're going to be delicious. They're going to be so good. They look fantastic. But they don't deliver on their promise to me. They always seem to overpromise, but they underdeliver. And maybe you have been that way before, like you've seen something, you've seen somebody enjoying something, and you really want to have it. You think, they're having fun with it. They like it. It seems to work for them. It's going to work for me. Let me get that. You see a commercial, or you see somebody driving something, or you see somebody with something that you want, and you go and get it, and you're like, that's it? That's it? And so maybe you've had something like that in your life where you think, if I only had that, if I could only have that, that would solve the problem, that would fix things, that would make me better, that would make life better. And then you get it, and you go, that's it. Maybe you have something like that in your life, or you've had something like that in your past, and you're thinking, that was it? I gave up that money. I gave up this time for that. Have you ever wanted something to work for you that seems to work for somebody else so badly that you give up so much for it, and then you wind up disappointed because it seems to oversell and it doesn't deliver? Well, I want to share with you in the not in the gospel, but we're going to get to the gospel in a minute, but I want to go to 1 Samuel in chapter 8. 1 Samuel in chapter 8. And I want to talk about a people group that saw what was happening to them, that there were all these raiding parties that against them, and they always had to defend themselves, and they looked over at another nation and all of the other nations that were surrounding them, and they thought, if only we could have what they have, and then we would have all of our problems solved, we'd be a better nation. It would vault us. It would vault us into success. If only we had what they had. It's the one thing that we seem to lack, but they seem to have. And if we could just have that. And so we're going to take a look at the Israelite nation. We're going to take a look at the Israelites, and we're going to take a look at the request that they made. They had grown tired. They had grown tired of some of the people that were ruling over them. They're coming out of a period called Judges, a period of the Judges, and they're coming out of a period where God had sent some people, some leaders to help, to defend them, to help lead them against these raiding parties. It's a pretty down time. I mean, they've had the Ark of the Covenant stolen from them. They've had it taken from them, retrieved it back, and they're like, if we could just have something better, then stuff like that wouldn't happen to us. So I want to share with you about what the Israelites, they make a request, and it's going to vault them into a new age, something that they thought was going to be great, but it ended up being just a dark age for them. And so, 1 Samuel in chapter 8, beginning of verse 1. It says, when Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of the first son was Joel, and the name of the second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So they weren't good judges. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. And they said to him, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have. Verse 6. But when they said, give us a king to lead us, this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as king. As they have done from the very day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them. God says listen to them. Even though you don't like this request, listen to them. But warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will do. Listen to what they got to say, but warn them. This is what's going to happen whenever they get this request. And so Samuel, in verse 10, told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king. He said, this is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take. I'm going to emphasize some phrases here, and they say it over and over again, and just listen to this. He will take your sons and daughters and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some will he assign to be commanders, and thousands of commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your men servants and maid servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. And he will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people refuse to listen to Samuel. He tells them this. They say, no, that won't be us. Well, it's some other people. That's not us. We get a king. It's not going to be like that. No way. We want a king. That's that we can be like the other nations, with a king to lead us into battle and to go out and fight our battles for us. And when Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. And the Lord answered, listen to them and give them a king. So they looked at what all of the other nations had, and they said, if we only had that, if we had that, then it'd be different than the period of Judges. If we had that, we'd be like these nations that are coming against us, that keep defeating us. They weren't looking at the things that were causing them to be defeated. They were looking at the things that they thought was helping that nation defeat them. They weren't looking introspectively, weren't looking at their nation and seeing why God was judging them with other nations and coming against them. Because he was. They were looking at them and saying, if only we had that. This next thing right here is what's going to keep us from being defeated. if we had a king like those nations had, that marched their armies and that challenged us to war, if we had someone like that. And they told Samuel and his sons, you guys are fired. We don't want you anymore. Ask God to give us somebody better. And they thought they were just firing Samuel and his sons, but who they were really firing was God as king. God said, they're not rejecting you, Samuel. Don't be so disheartened. They're rejecting me as their king. They wanted an earthly king to deliver them, to fight their battles. And we are prone to look at what other people have and the success that someone else has, and we think we want that, we desire that, and instead of just being a want and a desire, we say we need that. That's what's going to keep me going. That's what's going to get me successful. That's what's going to get me out of this problem. And you know what? It's going to prevent me from having other problems as well. What are some of the things that we surrender ourselves to for protection against the hard times of life, or we surrender ourselves to so that we can have success in life? Well, let me share some of them with you. Let's see if we can't connect with some of these. You may be surrendered to your job. You may have surrendered yourself to your job. You're thinking, what does that mean? It means you've made job as king. There is nothing that you won't sacrifice for your job. You will sacrifice anything for your job. You believe your job is the most important thing about you. It's the important thing for you and your family. It's the most important thing that's going to keep you away from harm and give you security and success in life. And so you will always be in pursuit of something more, something bigger. I mean, right now you might be content, and then you see somebody else's office. Or right now you might be content, but then you get to see somebody else's salary or their pension or their perks that they have. And you think, I need that. If only I had that. And that is what's going to give me success in life. That's what's going to protect me out of harm's way in life. And so you surrender everything to that. Your time and your attention, it's all devoted to your job. Job is king. Or maybe money is king for you. You've surrendered to money. And you're chasing after that. And your whole life you're thinking, if I could just have more wealth. I just need more things. I need more stuff. And you'll wind up doing anything to attain it. I mean, at one time you had what you would call ethics, and you had some morals, or you had some guidelines that you wouldn't cross, all right? But now you've just made up your own system of ethics. Now just follow along with me, okay? If this hits you, then it's supposed to, all right? But don't get offended, okay? If it doesn't, listen, you had some ethics and you had some guidelines that you went by in order how you were going to attain money and how you were going to advance and how you were going to get wealth, but then you crossed some lines and you compromised. And so now it's not just about money. It's all about the pursuit of money, and it doesn't matter how I get it as long as I have it. And money fixes everything. Money fixes everything. Or maybe you've surrendered to possessions. Maybe you're a person that uses gifts, or you use things in order to mend wounds or in order to make people happy around you. And so you think, if I possess these things and if I purchase these things for other people, then this is what's going to give us the good life as a family or as a couple, or I'm always going to get what's best. And so I just need to have more stuff. And as long as I accumulate more stuff and have the next thing, that'll make me happy. Whenever I'm sad, I go shopping. Whenever I feel bad about myself, or whenever somebody's sad around me or they're upset at me, I just buy them stuff. And that just solves everything. And so possessions are king for you. Or maybe it's relationships for you. Maybe it's relationships. Like some of us might be in the audience thinking, man, life would be so good if I had a girlfriend. Oh, man, I need a girlfriend so bad. I wish I had a girlfriend, because then I'd be happy. Oh, man, things would be so good. I'd have a date to the National Peanut Festival tonight. And we could get on that merry-go-round or get on that carousel or whatever, or get on something like the Starship 2000 or whatever they got out there. And when she gets scared, she'd hold my hand and life would be great. Man, that'd be the best thing if I just had a girlfriend. And some of us are thinking, if I just had a boyfriend, right? If I had a man to protect me, if I had somebody, man, just by my side, just to help me out with life's troubles, then everything would be perfect, right? And then we had some values before we started out in this venture of having a boyfriend or a girlfriend or having a companion. We're like, we're not going to cross this line. We're not going to do anything to harm our relationship. But then that person started to get disinterested. Or that person said, I love you so much. And you thought, oh, that's it, right? And so then you're thinking, well, whatever you want, you can have, okay? Whatever, let's do this together. Don't leave me. And so you begin to compromise in order to have that person and to keep that person. Some of the values that you had, some of the things that you held dear to you that you said you'd never cross, lines you'd never cross, you start crossing them because you want to have that relationship. in spite of what you know is right and what's healthy, you think, as long as we're together. So relationship is your king. And then one more thing. Maybe children are your king. You're thinking, well, what does that mean? Children are your king. Well, think about this. I've heard it from time and time again. That you may be in a relationship right now. You may be a married person, and you're in a relationship, and it stinks. Like, it's really bad. Like, you guys don't talk, and you don't go out on dates anymore, or you guys fight all the time, or you guys argue about money all the time, and you guys are just on the verge. Things really stink, so you just don't talk. You don't really engage with each other anymore. But you're just together for one thing. Well, we're together for our children. We're together for our children. And God put us together so that we could have this marriage, so that we could make babies and we could have kids. And that's what marriage is all about. We just make babies and we have kids and we got to take care of them. So I'll surrender to a pitiful marriage. I'll just surrender to a terrible marriage. Like, I'll surrender just to have a roommate. Somebody help me pay the bills. We don't have to, whenever we talk, we fight. So let's just not talk. Let's just stay together for the kids. And we say, that's a really noble thing. And then it's hard to really argue with that, isn't it? Have you heard somebody tell that to you? Hey, we're just together for the kids, Well, that's good. That's fantastic. You don't really know what to say. Like, you think, well, I don't think that's what it's about, but how do I really tell them that that's not what it's about, I don't really want to tell them that, me and my wife, we went out and see a movie the other day, or we went on a date the other day. I mean, I don't want to rub that in their face or whatever, like we love each other, like we actually do stuff together. I mean, yeah, you're right. Hey, that's why we're having 3 kids. We just, if you don't know, Anna and I are having another girl. So, hey, maybe we need to have another kid, Hey, when you have 2 kids, that's okay. When you have 3 kids, you're like the Duggars. People look at you strangely. You're like, okay, 3 kids is enough. You're just only supposed to replace yourself in America. That's it. I mean, 3 kids? Come on, what's wrong with you? All right, so if you think that your relationship and your marriage is just about having kids, then it's just going to stink when the kids are gone. It's going to be terrible. Then you just leave each other, right? Then you just leave each other. But maybe you're sitting here and you're thinking, well, none of that is me. I know that's me. I don't have problems with any of that. I don't have problems with my job being king. I don't have problems with wealth or possessions or kids or any of that being king. I mean, I'm fine. I'm really good. I mean, really, I'm a type person that if I had problems like that, like, hey, give me that person that has those problems. Maybe this person, you're like, let me just be their life coach, and I'll just coach them through all those issues. I mean, I'll just help them out. I mean, I'm a pretty take-charge person. You might be thinking that. Like, I don't have problems like that. And I don't tolerate people that have problems like that in my life. Okay, I know how to lead people. When people are under me, they do what I say, and everything's peachy keen with me because I know exactly what to do. I'm pretty educated. I'm pretty smart. I know how to carry myself. I know how to do all these things. I mean, listen, I got it going on. Well, I hate to tell you, but maybe you set yourself up as king. And sometimes when you're giving yourself a big, grand, congratulatory pat on the back, somebody gives you a slice of humble pie. And I hope you can recognize that and say, maybe you've been this person that's been sitting on the throne. Like, hey, you're the person that says, okay, I don't desire to have what other people have, but you know what? Their problems can be fixed. Maybe all they need is me. I'm the solution. I'm the solution to their problem. Maybe all they need is me. Man, if I was the president, man, if I did this, I mean, listen, if I ran that car company, listen, if I was the boss, and you think, it's just me. Man, I got all the good ideas. I got all the stuff, and nobody listens to me. But if they did, things would change. It's me. And so maybe you're the person right now that's sitting on the throne. And so maybe you're thinking, problem solved if everybody answered to me. What is it that you're waiting on to fix your life? What is it that you think that if you just only had that, if you had that as king, if you had that sitting on the throne, if you had that, things would be better? Well, I want to share something with you. Whenever we have decided to put something on a place where someone else should be, if we decided to make something king in our lives, well, what we just read, kings do what kings will do. Kings do what kings will do. Well, what is that? Kings take, and they take, and they take. They take your family as slaves. They take your possessions as their own, and then they finally take you as their slaves. And when you're on the throne, when you're king, well, everything important that you want to happen, it's dictated by you. You take time away from your family, and that's justified because you're king. You take priority in possessing the best of things in your group because that's okay because you're king. You take what you want, and you take it for your gain. And whenever you are set up as king, you are the supreme ruler. Whatever you have set up in your life as king, you become that desire. You become that for which you try to seek and long after. I had a lot of things to share with you, and in your life group packet there's some attributes of Jesus that I wanted to share with you, but we just don't have time to go over all those things. Maybe you can look at some other attributes of Jesus, but there's just one thing that I want to share with you, and I'm going to get there in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you what kings do. Kings promise the best for you, but instead they reserve the best for themselves. Kings promise the best for you, but instead they reserve the best for themselves. They say, put me on the throne, man. Life's going to be beautiful. You're going to have everything that you want. This is going to be the solution for your problems. Place me on the throne and think you're going to have happiness, you're going to have success, you're going to have all the best things in life. But listen, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about themselves. Kings, they build bigger castles. They build a lot of statues for themselves. They acquire more land because they all want all the glory. Each king wants all the glory. And these kings, all they do is take. All they do is take things in. And you know what? They don't reciprocate. They don't radiate. All they do is absorb. They absorb. If there's any happiness you think that you're going to have, they're just going to take all that too. Any joy, they're just going to take all that. Because in your pursuit of surrendering to this king or having what this king gives you, you lose all the things that are really most important at the outset. All the things that you really thought that you would attain and all the things that you hoped for. You lose those things. You lose all of that light, you could say. These kings do not radiate, they absorb. I want to give you an illustration. I just want to follow with me, okay? If it helps you, maybe if you want to just close your eyes right now. No, we're not playing hide and seek or anything like that, but just close your eyes right now. I just want us to picture this, connect with our emotions just a little bit. I want you to close your eyes and think of the darkest of nights. I want you to think of the darkest of times, the darkest of nights. And think about in this night, there is this huge storm, and it's so great, and it's so huge that it's blacked out the moon. You cannot see the moon. You cannot see in front of your face. It is so dark because there's a blackout. There's no electricity around. And it's hidden the moon. It's hidden all the light. And it's loud and noisy. I mean, just picture like doors banging. Just picture the wind assailing you, and just you picture the rain hitting, and it's so noisy you can't even hear the person next to you. And then you feel the floodwaters begin to rise, and you feel like you're being overcome by this, and at any moment you could possibly drown. Fear sets in. You can't see the exit. You can't see where to go, and it's getting at its worst, and you think that everything is just going to end up, you're going to end up in death, and then everything turns quiet, and the light becomes visible, and it grows, and it grows. And it grows until you are covered in light. And a ladder descends. And you're lifted up out of the dark. You can open your eyes if you want. You're lifted up out of the dark. You have been rescued. And all of this light, it's so blinding, even then you can't really see, but you know you've been lifted up out of the storm and out of the troubles and out of all the things that you've placed around you. You know, sometimes in that illustration that I'm sharing with you, you know, whenever things get real quiet, you know, you have that opportunity to make a really sound decision. You know, sometimes in life, like it just gets really quiet. You know, there's a lot of storms, a lot of things happening, and maybe you've hit your knees, or maybe someone shared something with you, or maybe you've got this bright idea, and instead of going towards the light, you look for something else, like you look for the next thing. You look for the next thing, and in looking for the next thing, you miss out on the main thing. And Jesus is here to rescue you from this dark age of kings. He has all of this glory. Jesus rescues as light. He radiates the glory of God. It comes from his presence. Jesus is the glorious king. I shared with you that kings promise the best for you, but instead they reserve the best for themselves. Well, Jesus gives you the very best of God. He gives you the glory of God. He is the glorious king. Jesus doesn't reserve the best for himself. In fact, he gives us the very best that God has. In fact, in John chapter 17 and verse 22, he tells his Father in prayer, he says, I have given them the glory that you gave me. I have given them the glory that you gave me. This radiant light I give to my disciples. Glory is the end game for all of us. This grand light, this great illumination is the end game for all of us that decide to be servants of Jesus Christ. It's not what he will do, but it's what he's already done. He has given it to us. In fact, in Romans chapter 8 and verse 30, Paul writes this really beautifully. He says, and those he predestined, he also called, and those he called, he also justified, and those he justified, he also glorified. That God is glorifying you. He is giving you what he has. You are radiating his image. In fact, whenever you accept Jesus and surrender to him as your king, the war is over. The war is over, because whenever you have a king in your life, any king that you set up, any false king, any earthly king, yourself as king, you are always at war with God. But whenever you surrender yourself to Jesus Christ and surrender yourself to God's will, then the war is over. Glory has come into your life. Do not accept the dark age of kings. Do not accept anything that's illegitimate. Do not accept anything unless it's as precious as what Jesus has done. Jesus wants to give you God's glory. This is a great application for us today. We know that Jesus has given his disciples glory, and he gives us glory. But I want to tell you a little bit about a guy named Moses, okay, in the limited time that I have left, all right? This guy named Moses. Moses was God's spokesperson. He went up on the mountain and he received the law from God. And one of the times when Moses goes up on the mountain, he spends the 40 days with God. He's with God, and God's like, I'm so angry at the people, I'm going to leave you. Moses says, don't leave me. I need your presence. So God says, okay, I won't leave you. And Moses is like, okay, show me your glory. Show me all your glory. And God's like, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. You could stand in the cleft of this rock over here. And as I'm passing by, I'll place you in the cleft, and I'll cover you with my hand, okay? Just picture this in your mind if you can. And he says, as I'm passing by you, I will release my hand from the cleft of the rock, and you will get to see my back, Moses. How's that? Moses is like, whoo! I get to see God's back. I mean, it's not really exciting to us, I'm sure, but to him, it was really exciting. He's like, okay, all right, I got to see God's back. And so he gets to see the glory of God. God says, you cannot see all of my glory because you'll die, Moses. I'll show you my back. And so he sees God's glory. And it says when he comes down from the mountain, his face is glowing. And everybody's afraid of him. Aaron, everybody. They're just like, Moses, something's wrong with you. Your face is glowing. I don't know if maybe they're trying to tell him, hey, Moses, here. You're trying to tell somebody got food on their mouth. They're like, Moses, all over here, just glowing. It's just kind of scary, Moses. We can't talk to you. And so Moses gets a veil and he puts it on his face. He puts this veil on his face when he's around the people because they're afraid. And so he's been with God, the presence of God. He's been in the presence of God, and glory is shining before him. And so in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 18, it says that we all reflect the Lord's glory like Moses. We're being transformed into the likeness of Jesus Christ with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the glory who is the Spirit. Now, I emphasize ever-increasing because one of the things about Moses' glory was it was decreasing. And so part of it was that Moses has this on his face so that the people won't be afraid. But I know also part of it is that Moses doesn't want everybody to know that the glory's fading. That the glory's fading. That it's going away. But we, unlike Moses, have something better because when we're in Christ, we don't just get to see the presence of God. We get to carry the presence of God with us. And God shines his glory through us. That we're a temple of glory. And so we have unveiled faces in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 18. We're not like Moses in verse 13. It says Moses who would put a veil over his face to keep the Israelites from gazing at that glory while the radiance was fading away. We have an ever-increasing glory. And one day, this ever-increasing glory, as it shines brighter and brighter and brighter, it will culminate into the fullness of glory. And it surpasses any glory that you could receive that you think you might have if you set yourself up as king or if you give your heart to something else and place on the throne of your heart something else as king in your life. Jesus is a benevolent, victorious, loving, compassionate, and glorious king. He wants to share everything that God has given him with you. And Jesus just keeps giving and giving. He's not like the king that we read about. When you get this king, he's going to take and he's going to take. But Jesus gives and he gives and he gives. In fact, the Bible says that he gave and gave until he died. Until there was nothing left to give. He gave everything for us. He is the glorious King, and all of this glory can be ours. The Bible even says that he takes us from where we are in the mess and the pit of where we are, and he seats us in the heavenly realms with Jesus. And whenever you are part of what Jesus is doing, you're not just his servant, you're his brother. You're his sister. You get all the things that Jesus has. That's the gospel. That's the good news that you have. It's not that, I'm not telling you this morning, if you don't know anything about Jesus, I'm not telling you this morning you need to be a Christian so that you can give this church a whole bunch of good stuff. I'm not telling you this morning that you should be a Christian because of all the things you could give God. But I want to tell you, you should be a Christian because of all the things that God wants to give you. That God wants to give you all of this stuff that has been placed away, reserved for you, that he's given his son to die for so that you could have it. And God wants to give this to you. All this glory. In your handouts, if you look in your bulletin there, you'll see some selected lyrics that I pulled from the David Crowder Band. I love this song. It's really an inspiration for this message. In fact, this whole lesson series is inspired by this worship album, Passion, White Flag. I'd look it up on iTunes. I'd look it up on Amazon. You can't go to a music store anymore, but, I'd download it, or somebody has it, man, get it from your teen. But White Flag, it's just this song here, and we're going to end with this. We're going to close with this. I'm going to read you these lyrics. In the middle of a mess, there is majesty. In the middle of my chest is the King of Kings. While the world was waiting on a change to come along, light broke in. In the middle of the night, you are majesty. To the middle of our plight came the King of Kings. While we were waiting on your love to come along, light broke in. All this glory. In the middle of the night, all is light. In the middle of the night, after all is quiet, Jesus, God with us. Jesus Christ has come, and I'm undone. Jesus, God with us. Jesus Christ has come, and love has won. This time we offer you a moment to come down forward, and if you want us to pray with you or just want to surrender your life to Jesus, you just want to find out more about Jesus and want part of the glory that he has to offer you, then we give you this moment. We give you this time. We're going to stand and sing together. Let's rise.
The split